As President of the JCA and on behalf of our well-practiced events team, I'd like to welcome everyone, candidates, those in the audience in person, and those on YouTube. We have regular monthly meetings 10 times a year from February to November, second Tuesdays of every month, just around the corner in the community centre. And a portion of the cost to market and do this event were funded by a WCC grant. Exits are both out the front where you came in, the emergency exit on the opposite end of the same wall. Near where you came in is all the facilities for bio breaks, and we gather in an emergency out and left on the grass. Now, over to the MC of the night, Councillor Randall.
Welcome to Johnson. Well, you got my mic on? Yeah. Darren's the one who's really in charge around here. So I'm Tony Randall, I'm a City Councillor, and welcome to the Johnsonville Oharu Electorate Candidates Meeting for 2023. Great turnout, thanks for coming along and being interested. Before we get into the things, I've got a couple of thanks to be done. Unfortunately, we've got a million apps out there, but there's still no app to go and put signs out, put chairs out. So I'd like to thank all the helpers from the Johnsonville Community Association. I'd like to thank Ray White for producing some lovely signs that we've got around that you might have seen, and that might be the reason you were here. I'd like also to acknowledge two city councillors, Councillor Apanovich, from the Northern Ward, and Councillor Chung over here from the Western Ward. Thanks for coming along, guys. I'd like to ask also, is there anyone else who are candidates for any other seat or anything who'd just like to introduce themselves? No, that's fine. Sometimes people come along. We are streaming this live. Oh, sorry. Yes, please. Yeah. Please introduce yourself. So your name is Meg? Yes, Meglin. Okay, welcome. Thank you for coming here. So we are streaming live on YouTube, so also welcome to everyone on YouTube, both live and watching it later. The agenda is the way we run things in Johnsonville is we give the candidates a chance to introduce themselves properly. So they've got 5 minutes to talk to you about themselves and what they are going to do for Johnsonville, for Oharu as a potential MP. Then we'll have a wee stretch, and then we'll get into the old Q&A, which is always fun. It'll be a minute question, a minute answer. We'll take turns. The rules are keep to the question. We want to hear a question. Think about the question in terms of what other people are interested in as well. And also have a bit of, we want to keep it a bit lighthearted. This is mainly about you getting to know these guys. Okay, so we've drawn lots of cards, and the first person to come up and talk to us and to address you is Martin Jenkins from Prospect and Prosper New Zealand. Martin, welcome.
And guests. My name is Martin Jenkins, and I'm here as the electorate candidate for a new party, a centrist party called Protect and Prosper. Protect and Prosper came out because we were very concerned about the number of crises that were impacting on our great country, in particular health, cost of living, law and order, housing, climate change, road safety. In addition, the absence of responsibility, transparency, and fiscal accountability. And furthermore, the division that was being created in our great country. Protect The word protect, it came through protect you, protect your family, protect your property, protect your wealth, protect your dignity. And then prosper was the aspect of enterprise, entrepreneurship, and productivity. My background, my qualifications are in engineering, civil engineering and finance, and I have extensive expertise and experience in engineering, project management, property development, retail management, road safety education, art management and community work. I've been a resident of Ohariu for over 30 years, and in that time I've belonged to many organisations, both sports and cultural. Local closest to here would be the Olympic Harrier Club and other clubs. I'm a committee member of the Onslow Residents Community Association, which for those who don't know represents the suburbs of Broadmeadows, Kandala and Kaifora. I'm an inaugural committee member. I was there at the onset and past vice president. For Orca, I've been involved in a lot of very interesting projects. For example, emergency planning and resilience, road safety education, responsible dog ownership. And in more recent times, I was involved over a 2-year period working on the Burma on Burma project, beautification project opposite Malvina Major Retirement Village. In 2005, I established New Zealand's first drowsy driving educational campaign for New Zealand to educate New Zealanders about the dangers of driver fatigue or drowsy driving, falling asleep at the wheel. And I wrote the 2005 fatigue section of the New Zealand Road Code for Waka Kotahi and Ministry of Transport. In addition, I set up New Zealand Drowsy Drive Awareness Day, 30th of December, at Parliament. What I'm looking from you is your vote me as the electoral candidate for Ohariu. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I'd like now to ask the incumbent, our incumbent MP, Greg O'Connor, to come and address you.
Right, kia ora everyone, and I think in 6 years here, this is the biggest crowd we've actually had in an election meeting, so well done JCA. And I think it's just some indication of how much interest there is in this election. I'm Greg O'Connor, I'm your incumbent MP. I've been here since 2017. I'm standing as an electorate MP only again. I did that in 2020. I would have done it in 2017 if I'd known that you were allowed to do it. Because my skill set that I bring to you, and I look around and I actually know probably most of you here, and hopefully you'll know me, because my skill set is being on the ground, understanding this electorate. With my background in policing, I in fact started policing here. I've lived, my first flat was over in Mark Avenue in Paparangi. I've lived out in Ohariu Valley 3 different times. Lived up in Morgan Street, currently live in Kandala. I've played rugby for Wests, and so I've got some pretty good pedigree to build on here. But that's all you do is build on. Because while we talk about Ohariu, there's actually, in a lot of ways, there's no such place. There's like Johnsonville, there's Newlands, there's Tawa, right down to Wadestown. And each of those communities have their own needs. For example, and I see Brian here from the Churton Park Residents Association. There's 8 residents associations here. And each of those residents associations are sort of our window into those communities. And they have meetings monthly, and you've got to go along to those meetings, and actually the way we learn what's going on, who's doing what. There's sports clubs. In fact, you just introduced the fact there are 2 council areas here. There's the west and there's the north. Each of them have their meetings, each of them have their issues. So in 6 years here, I've spent that time, what I call shrinking the electorate, so can understand exactly what needs to happen. And as a result, you end up getting involved in big things, little things. One of the little things, just this week, Kandala, they've had the post shop is closed. They had nowhere to post their letters. One of the community came to me. I got in touch with local supermarket. Ian was new there. Got in touch with Foodstuffs. Got in touch with New Zealand Post. It's going in this week. They're the little things you do because people know you're there. They know they can come to you. Then there's the big things. There's Newlands Fire Brigade. I think a lot of the faces here, a lot of you were at that meeting where, once again, it came to a question. Do you want to save the fire station, which was in the park there, or do you want to save the fire brigade? There was one young fireman there who said, I've got kids, we need a park. The council wanted to take the fire station off there, so we went to keep the brigade. The brigade now, as you'll see, as you'll all know, is down in Nauronga. So these are the things you get involved in. And then, of course, the main job is to represent you two down in Parliament. I've been the Deputy Speaker for the last year, and that's a time I really understood. Each of you, whatever job you've done, there'll be a time you remember when you actually got it. You got the job you did, and now I really do understand how, because it's a relatively bipartisan job there, sitting in the chair. You see both sides. You see how the place works in a way that many people who can work there a long time will never get to do it. And that's why I can effectively represent you down there as well. And of course, represent you as your Labour MP. And look, you'll hear a lot of things, people talking about the economy. Well, let me tell you about our economy. I was just looking at exactly how much we did borrow for COVID. And I bring up COVID because it's very fashionable to say we're over COVID. But I'll challenge you in each one of your lives, in your workplaces, that is not still impacted in some way, directly or indirectly, by COVID. And that is actually our economy as well. Most of the money, there were many people here who own businesses who also got the wage subsidy. Oh, sorry, was that a question? Oh, we got time. Oh, you better give me another 30 seconds now. So anyway, so COVID, and that's where the fact that, look at this room here, apply the statistics from the United States, from the UK, and apply them to this room, and how many few of you would be here, how many less of you would be here, how many of your family wouldn't be here. And so when you actually start looking at our economy, 30 seconds to go, that's a good one there, we are actually, but don't take my word for it, the ratings agencies have just been over here in New Zealand, all of them. Fitch is the latest one, who said actually the New Zealand economy, compared to most in the world, is in quite good shape. Our borrowings aren't as dastardly, as demonly as are being painted out. Yes, we've got a long way to go, and you've already seen Grant Robertson starting on that work. So looking forward to your questions later on. Greg O'Connor, electorate only, and looking forward to being your electorate MP going forward. No, I won't.
Thank you, Greg. Technical issues, I guess. We're getting there. I'd like to welcome now Patrick Lim from Vision New Zealand. Patrick, welcome to Johnsonville.
All right, hi everyone, and welcome to tonight, and thank you all for coming out. So my name is Patrick Lim, and I'm standing for Vision New Zealand as a candidate for Oharu. So Vision New Zealand is part of an umbrella party, Freedoms New Zealand. So that's including 6 parties and groups within it. Yeah, so I'm New Zealand born and bred. I grew up in the Hutt Valley. My parents are Cambodian Chinese. They are refugees from Cambodia. So they came here because their lives were at risk, and since they are grateful for New Zealand. So I'm married and I have 2 young children. And I've lived in this electorate, Oharu, for over 12 years. So my background is in science and in the medical field. I've worked as a community pharmacist for 15 years and also run a small business in photography. So never would I see myself in this position right now, but over the last 6-7 years, many would all agree with me that many sectors of our society is in crisis and currently heading downhill. And so also in that time, I'm seeing that many people have become very divided. And this is mainly because of some of the poor decisions that's made at the very top. So I'm standing to be a voice for empowering families, for quality education, for upholding our freedoms and rights, for economic fairness, for affordable homes and quality healthcare. Vision New Zealand is a party that is strongly focused on families, with moral integrity, with fairness, with inclusiveness and democracy. We will reverse any policies that undermine parental rights, responsibilities, knowledge or consent. Vision New Zealand is determined to give back the power to the family. We believe that family is the heart of the matter and that families are the cornerstone of our society. So if we can empower families, fix families, we can fix the issues that we have in our society. We have empowering family packages, including children's grants, including business startups, interest-free for first-home buyers. We have targeted financial support for solo parents. We will allow landlords who are also, many are mums and dads, to deduct their interests and like every other businesses. And this will help reduce the heat on rent rises. We will cut pet projects such as cycle lanes. Now is not the time. So we can retrieve that $8 billion from Let's Get Wellington moving. What we need to do is focus on our frontline services. Many are struggling at the moment, are in desperate need, our healthcare, our education, which ultimately affects all of us. Speaking about healthcare, we need to fix the healthcare system. We have to fix our healthcare system. Shortages of nurses, shortages of doctors. Many of our health professionals are just overworked, underpaid, and are struggling, are crying out for support. They're pleading for us to fix a broken system that, many will just leave the country, head over the ditch. We cannot let that happen. And also, amongst all this, we have a health system that is treating patients by race. This should not be, and we will put an end to that. So I'm all about a targeted approach, but we need to take care of our patients by a needs-based system. Education is another thing that's big on my heart with young children. Truancy is high, grades are declining. We need to, Vision New Zealand will get rid of all the ideological curriculum. We need to concentrate on the basics, and we need to not confuse our children with add social confusion. So let's get back to the basics. We also need to sort out our crime, and we have in Freedoms New Zealand a comprehensive law and order policy. So party, vote, Freedoms New Zealand. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Now, can I ask Jessica, please, welcome to Johnsonville for top.
Kia ora tātou. Kia ora tātou. Ko Jessica Hammond tōku ingoa. My name's Jessica Hammond, and I'm very proud to be representing the Opportunities Party here in my home of Ohariu for the third time. I've lived in this electorate for about 17 years. This is the place I've chosen to make my home and the place I've chosen to raise my two daughters. I love this community. I am very connected to this community, and that is why I am standing and asking for your electorate vote. I'm also asking for your party vote for the Opportunities Party, and I'll hope I'm going to give you some really good reasons for giving me both those votes. The third thing I'm going to ask is, if by the end of tonight you think it's worth considering me or considering Top, is for you to tell a friend or 10, because I do not have the money that some of these other candidates do to reach all of you through social media or flyers. So I'm really relying on that word of mouth. I actually had a prepared speech that these people are all very, very bored of hearing, because we've been spending a lot of time with each other these past weeks. But I had a conversation with a friend today that really made me feel like I wanted to rip that up and start again. My friend is a sole parent of a 13-year-old, and she had to leave her house because her flatmate was leaving and she couldn't take on the lease. And so I've been trying to help her find a new home. And today she got in touch to say that she and her son have found a rental, and she is absolutely thrilled. It is in Whitby, and it is going to cost her $700 a week. She works full-time, and she has a part-time job on top of that. She's going to do more hours in her part-time job so she can increase her rent to $700 a week. And shortly, she and her son are going to move. He is 13, and this is going to be his 15th house move. In 1989, we changed our tax system in New Zealand, and partway through, the government lost interest and forgot to do the bit that would have fixed our tax system so that we didn't have a housing crisis. That has never changed. Despite tax working groups advising the National and Labour governments over 30 years that they needed to fix this problem, they haven't fixed it. Since 1989, we have had the fastest increase in house prices in the OECD. We now have the third biggest houses in the OECD, and this is all driven by our tax system. Our tax system is why my friend and her son have had to move 15 times in 13 years, and why they have to pay $700 a week. If we don't get to the root cause of some of these problems, they are just going to keep getting worse. And when we don't fix these problems and they fester, social division increases, and we have seen what happens overseas when we let these problems fester. Now, Nicola's going to tell you her solution to this problem. She's going to say we should build the Petone Granada Road, and it's going to free up land for about 5,000 houses. So in about 10 years or so, we might have 5,000 houses. This year, our net migration is 100,000 people. So in 10 years, there might be some houses for maybe 20% of the people who have arrived this year alone. That's their plan. Greg's plan to fix this problem is, I'm just joking, he doesn't have one. But Top does have a plan. We have a plan to treat this problem at its root cause by fixing the housing crisis, fixing the tax problem that has caused our housing crisis. We have a lot of solutions like this, and they're not sort of wild. They have been recommended by experts for a long time. They've been used with great success overseas. And guess what? The people who are in Parliament know this stuff, but they don't have the courage to do it. Raf Manji's our party leader. He's standing in Ilam, thank you. He's going to win that electorate. That gets Top into Parliament. Then every party vote counts. When we get in, we are willing to work with almost any of the parties represented here tonight. And we can stop this constant left-right shuffle that never gets us moving forwards. We will help whoever is in government to do better, to solve our problems at their root. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you for finishing right on the bell. You guys are doing well, thank you. Please, Paul, could you come up and join us? Paul Day from ACT, thank you.
Can I do this one? Hey guys. Kia ora tātou, how are we doing tonight? Apologies for the microphone, these sorts of things don't work for little people. Look, I'm Paul from ACT, for ACT Taharu. Oh, great, okay. For Actor Harry. And I'm here tonight to ask you if you would consider lending ACT your party vote on October 14. Now, I do just need to apologise because I am not a politician, so excuse a few notes. I am a cafe owner and I make coffee for a living. And before that midlife crisis, I was a finance professional for 20 years in New Zealand and overseas. So ACT has a vision for New Zealand, one that celebrates hard work and success, upholds personal accountability, and enables equal participation in our democracy for all Kiwis. Today, I'm sure you all know that we face a number of issues. We have huge costs of living, we have rise in crime, and a number of those areas of our democracy are being eroded. ACT has real policies and real solutions to bring to the table. So the cost of living, I don't need to tell you how much things cost today, whether it is food or rent, travel or construction. Things are out of control. Deep inflation from a government addicted to spending. Today we have over 13,000 additional bureaucrats added to the public service. We have an eye-watering $100 billion added to the public debt. And yet the question has to be, what do we have to show for it? ACT says enough. It is time for a bit of a family intervention and cut up those government credit cards. It is time to rebalance the public service. And it is time to reduce red tape, which is across the entire country, so as to free up the capacity and for Kiwis of all sorts to flourish. But most importantly, we believe that all government departments need to be held to account, to be efficient, and to deliver for all New Zealanders. And we are not apologetic in saying that if that cannot be done, maybe they need to be closed down. ACT also has a vision for a safe and enjoyable Aotearoa, one which is free from the fear of violence and crime. ACT truly believes that hardened criminals need to be incarcerated and rehabilitation offered within the confines of safe corrections facilities. We think that parole should be granted when criminals have been able to gain practical life skills, and we've been able to find safe locations for them to be upon release. And ultimately, we feel that sentencing should focus on the needs of safety of the community over and above the cultural or upbringing of the criminal. And finally, the issue of governance, which no one really wants to talk about, but it is the elephant in the room. ACT believes that the Treaty of Waitangi is the cornerstone of New Zealand. ACT embraces a unified, non-divisive form of government, where the state protects everyone's property and treasures, and where everyone is treated equally before the law. ACT champions collaboration, but that is through dialogue and through goodwill, not through coercion of the state. I certainly appreciate that real change is difficult, but we do believe it is necessary. And so tonight I'm asking you to consider your party vote for ACT on October 14. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Paul. So just to let you know, they've done a quick count. There's about 190 people in the hall, and there's about 20 people online. And so this is a really popular meeting. Thank you all for paying attention and getting involved. I'd like to now introduce Nicola Willis from National Party. Thank you.
Well, good evening, all 210 of you. It's fantastic to have this hall full for local democracy tonight. My name's Nicola Willis. I'm the Deputy Leader of the New Zealand National Party and its finance spokesperson. I'm also a long-term Wellingtonian. I've spent 36 of my 42 years in this city, and together with my husband Duncan, we are raising our 4 children here. I'm very grateful to Duncan for being a wonderful caregiver to our children, and I'm very grateful to his school, Onslow College, for teaching him about the many ways that we can contribute to life, and he certainly contributes to our family considerably. At this election, you have 2 votes. You have a party vote and an electorate vote, and I am asking for both of them. I am your candidate for the Ohariu electorate because I want better for our communities and I want better for our country. And it's my view that as your strong voice in a national-led government, I can get more done for you. Since I became the Ohariu candidate, together with my incredible team of volunteers, we have knocked on thousands of doors in this electorate. We have made thousands of phone calls. We have hosted public meetings, street corner meetings. We've had a lot of conversations. And I have spoken to so many people who are struggling, for whom our broken economy has meant that the cost of living is too high. They worry about their rent. I have spoken to people who are worried about crime, growing disorder, who have told me terrible stories about the waiting times at Wellington Hospital, and who are concerned about our country's future. And at this election, National's view is that to rebuild our economy, to reduce the cost of living, to lift incomes, and to sustainably fund the public services we all deserve, we need stronger economic management. We need to bring discipline back to government spending to reduce pressure on inflation and interest rates. We need tax reduction for working people so that you have more money in your bank account each fortnight. We need to reduce the red tape and regulation that's holding back business investment and growth. We need to lift standards in our education system by starting with the basics of reading, writing, and maths. We need to plug skill gaps in our economy, including getting more of our nurses to stay here by helping pay off their student loans. And we need to deliver infrastructure for the future so that we can sustain growth. Now, all of those issues have a local element. The issues that have come up locally on the doorsteps that I want to share with you tonight are threefold. The first is the concern about congestion on Noronga Gorge and getting from here into town and into the hut. National is committed to building a new road from our suburbs to Petone, from Granada to Petone. This will do 2 things. It will reduce congestion on the gorge, but it will also open up land for more than 5,000 houses, and we need them. We have a housing affordability crisis. The second issue that keeps coming up is your frustration with Let's Get Wellington Moving, which has been anything but. Any proposal which serves to remove 70 car parks from Johnsonville against the will of the people who live here is not one that you should be asked to put up with. So National's view is that we should stop that and instead focus on delivering the projects that you need and elect me to be the advocate you need for better public transport. Because I know your frustration with buses and trains that have too often been unreliable, and I have the guts to stand up to the regional and city council and demand better on your behalf. The third issue that comes up is Johnsonville Mall. And I want to say, in some ways it's symbolic, because there is something that politician after politician has promised you they'll do something about, that the bulldozers are coming. And actually nothing's happened. And I would put to you that what we need is actually an economy that is stronger, so that people do want to invest, but we also need to get the right people around the table, central government, local government, and the developer. And my commitment to you is that as your local MP, I will ensure I'm part of a government that delivers a stronger economy, and that when we make commitments, we get things done and we deliver. So yes, I'll take action on Johnsonville Mall, but I'll do it in the context of a stronger economy, because that's what New Zealand needs right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Last, please welcome Stephanie Rogers from the Green Party. Thanks.
Kia ora koutou. Oh, how are we doing? I'll just lean forward a tiny bit. I'm going to use this microphone because thanks to Paul, I can now use this as proof to my partner that I am not in fact short. So kia ora koutou, ko Stephanie Rogers tōku ingoa. My name is Stephanie Rogers and I am the Green Party candidate for Ohariu. I am a mum, I'm a public servant, I'm a feminist, I'm a trade unionist. I live in Tawa with my partner and our 2.5-year-old. She's been a bit sniffly this week and hasn't been sleeping, so I haven't been sleeping. So if I come across at any point as tired or incoherent, that is why. And you can't blame her, she's very, very cute. I am standing for the Green Party because the status quo is broken. It's only delivering for bankers and billionaires, and we all need and deserve a government that delivers policies for everyone and also for our planet, because we only have one. I'm standing in Ohariu because this is my home. My partner and I bought our first home in Newlands and about 12 years ago, and we moved to Tawa quite recently because the aforementioned toddler needed a bit more space. I know that I am extremely lucky. I own my own home. It is warm and dry. I have public transport on my doorstep. I have access to a great community centre, a library, a pool, and let me tell you all, the northern suburbs have got it made on community pools. I mean, Wellington Central cannot even look at us when it comes to the community pools. I am so lucky to have all of those things, and I'm so lucky that my daughter has all of those things. But people shouldn't have to be lucky. We need a government that will deliver the policies that ensure that everyone gets to live a good life. Everyone gets to have a warm, safe, dry home. Everyone has access to those community facilities and those public services, to good education and to good healthcare. And we're not going to get there doing the same old, same old. We're not going to get there by just adding another lane or building another road. We're not going to get there by cutting taxes for the wealthiest or for big business. We are going to get there through policies like an income guarantee and free dental and real climate action and rebalancing our tax system. Our proposal is for a wealth tax that only affects 0.7% of people in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we can fund all of that and universal free school lunches, because no child should go hungry regardless of what you think of their parents or the situation they are living in. So I am asking for your party vote, partly on pragmatic grounds. Let's face it, this is the Greg and Nicola show, and I'm just not going to try to get in between those two. I am asking for your party vote so we can get more Green MPs into Parliament and into government and around the cabinet table, so we can have a strong, progressive voice for people and planet in our Parliament. I still have so much time left, so let me just check my notes and make sure I haven't missed anything. No, that's it really. I've got a pretty tight pitch, but I feel like I should use up all the time, because otherwise you'll just ask really tricky questions. I can tell this is a crowd that has a vibe to it. This is my first time doing this, and I've already figured out that the northern suburbs are full of people who ask excellent questions, and it's very hard to answer them sometimes. So I will do my best. So, if you really want change to the status quo, there is only one way to get that, and that is to party vote Green, because we're going to be in Parliament, we're going to be strong and loud and proud, and we're going to make the difference. We're going to be the angel on the Labour Party's shoulder, or we're going to be the devil on the crossbenches telling National to do a better job. We know how to use the power of Parliament, whether we are in government or in opposition, to make the changes that benefit all of our communities. We are going to call out the dog whistles, the conspiracy theories, the weird US imported bigotries. We are, frankly, pretty fun. I've now talked until the bell, so I think I've filled enough time. I'm just going to repeat again. Party vote Green, because if you play your cards right, given the way MMP works, you could actually end up with 2 or 3 of us in Parliament, and wouldn't that be great for our region? Cheers.
Thank you, Stephanie. Right, let's go. Who are the lucky ones to start with? Who's the lucky ones to start? So any candidate can answer any question, or they don't have to answer every question, but they probably will. So 16, 44 and 17, a heart. Okay, So please ask your question. 1 minute, please keep to the question. And we're going to start with Paul for the answer.
Try not to dance too much.
My question's for Stephanie. You have two wealth thresholds under your wealth tax policy, $4 million for couples and $2 million for single people. So let's take the example of a couple who are over the $4 million threshold and one of them dies. The widowed person is now single, so the $2 million threshold applies. It means that they must pay an extra $50,000 a year in tax simply because their partner died. What's more, most of the people who will pay this extra $50,000 a year will be women, because on average women outlive their husbands by 4 years and 8 months. So my question is, why does the Green Party think it's a good idea to tax some people an extra $50,000 a year simply because their partner died?
Okay, so I'm going to give this to Stephanie's answer, and any others can answer it as well.
Kia ora. So just to be really, really clear, the wealth tax applies to debt-free assets. So if somebody and their partner own a house that is worth $4 million and they have no mortgage on it and no other debts, yes, that is when a 2.5% wealth tax kicks in, which can be deferred until sale of that asset. So it doesn't actually need to be paid every single year. Those are obviously really difficult circumstances, and I personally have had a relative who's had their partner pass away in the past year, and it takes some time to reflect and consider what you want to do with the house, what you want to do with the assets. It is a difficult situation, however, it is also a fact that we do not tax wealth in this country at the moment, and we need to, because 311 families hold $85 billion, and that could be put to actual productive use. So tax is a good thing. Taxes pay for the good public services and public facilities that we all need and use, and people who hold $4 million in assets on their own can certainly afford to pay their fair share at the point of sale.
So going to ask if anyone else wants to talk about that sort of thing. Paul.
Well, all I'm going to say, and you're probably going to understand this is predictable, but no one has taxed themselves into prosperity. The reality is that if people have earned that wealth and have built it up, it is theirs, and it's not for the state to be taking extra chunks out of it just because we believe it should be redistributed.
Well, we believe that, tax is we've got to be, good stewardships with those. But, I mean, what we want is money to the people who really need it. I mean, our policy, we have the first 25,000 tax-free.
Thanks. So we've got a bit of a system going now. Apparently this is a system they use in all the meetings.
As far as the Protect and Prosper policy goes, we have the first 7,000 tax-free. And the other thing that we would introduce is a sugary drinks tax. So it applies to sugary drinks, and we've actually launched a petition already over the last 3 weeks. We've got 1,000 signatures, so we encourage you to sign. The idea is to reduce the rate of type 2 diabetes, dental decay, heart disease, cancers, and a host of other medical conditions, particularly for the young. It's in 80 countries around the world already. We are very slow to adopt it, and it's something that needs to be progressed. And it's also shown in several countries to be particularly successful amongst the young teenagers. It's been shown a 15% reduction in sugar consumption.
Thanks. So, Nicola.
The problem with wealth taxes, and it's why many countries have given up on them, is people can choose where they keep their wealth. And when these taxes are imposed, often they take it elsewhere. We already have a very fragile economy. This is not the time to be scaring off the people who create jobs and incomes. But I think we all need to focus on the fact that at this election there is a risk of a Labour, Green to Party Māori coalition that will be prepared to put that wrecking ball through the economy. Now here's one area where you'll find agreement with almost everyone on this stage except for the Labour Party, and that is that working people are paying too much tax. Inflation has pushed people into higher tax brackets and they are paying higher effective rates of tax. National is going to fix that. We're going to ensure that a median income worker earning $60,000 a year is $50 better off a fortnight, an average income household up to $100 better off a fortnight, and a family with young children up to $250 better off each fortnight.
Okay, if I use this one, Darren? Thank you. I'm never going to pass up an opportunity to talk about tax. So, I have a graph. This is from one of the tax working groups that Labour and National ignored. Now, what you can see here is the tax on basically anywhere where you can put your money in New Zealand. And you'll see one of those bars is really, really short. That's for owner-occupied housing. And there's another one that's pretty short. This is out of date. Labour with their interest deductibility thing, that one's gone up. If National comes in, that one's going to go back down. But this is what I was talking about, our tax problem that we have in New Zealand. And what it means is, if you have money in New Zealand, the place to put it in is to property. So we have excess demand for properties that are as big as we can possibly have. And we have a problem with land banking, because it doesn't matter whether that property is put to productive use or not, or if it's something like the Johnsonville Mall that's not put to productive use. Someone ask another question about tax so I can finish this off. Thank you.
There was considerable debate in the Labour caucus about the wealth tax, and of course, what was decided, and there were some really good arguments put up on all sides, and good democracy took place, and it was decided that right at this time, when we really are settling our economy down, when there's so much more to do, that wasn't really the time for us to be doing it. And so that was why the decision was made by Chris Hipkins not to do that. Tax is an interesting one, isn't it? Nobody wants to pay it, but just about everyone here will have a question that will probably involve spending more tax. You know, we've got 1,800 more police. We've increased the numbers of nurses. We've increased the number of teachers. We've increased the pay of all of them. And that's when we're going to talk about the cost of living. That's where we need the money to go, because New Zealand has been a low-wage economy for too long.
Thank you, Greg. Can I just also ask you, when you start your question, can you just introduce yourself, first name, say, and maybe the suburb you're from or something like that? Just a little bit, and then your question, please.
Kia ora koutou, ko Nicola Gallic Ragau Tokunga. I live about 200 metres away on Middleton Road. My question is about the public service, because Ohio electorate is the highest percentage of second highest percentage of public service in the country. I'm a public servant. I know many of you will be members of the public service, or your children, or your friends, or your family, or your neighbours. ACT wants to cut 15,000 public service by Christmas. National wants to cut 6% of public service budgets by Christmas. That means public servants losing their job by Christmas. So I would like to ask those two candidates, what would you say to those individuals who will be in this electorate who would be losing their jobs by Christmas about why they should vote for you?
Well, with Freedoms New Zealand, we agree that we need to cut, we're against wasteful spending. And so public servant, we can cut that size to a manageable working size. And I mean, I know, everyone's heard of the word restructure. We will have to do that. We've got to be bold. It's the cost of living at the moment. We are in huge debt, and we need to restructure so that we can deal with the cost of living. And part of that is we have to restructure.
So from an ACT perspective, I was going the other end. I'll answer at the end. Okay, so apologies. From an ACT perspective, yes, we do believe that there is a need to rebalance the public service. The expansion of it has been huge, and we do have to ask what is being delivered for New Zealanders. And if it isn't efficient, it isn't fair to ask taxpayers continue to fund those areas. Now, ACT has not set some date in the ground, and nor has it set criteria for how that review should be done. And so we would say that it is important to look at how these departments and areas are operating and if they're efficient, and that process needs to happen. We also believe that there are plenty of businesses out there that are hungry for productive workers. So if you're out of work from one area, that is how the economy does work, unfortunately, and there are opportunities within the economy.
Thanks. I'm going to ask Nicola to answer the next after this as well, because it's addressed to you, and then we'll do the others.
Great. Okay. Can I acknowledge you, Nicole, as a volunteer for the Green Party? I've got volunteers here tonight too, and politics doesn't work without them. Look, I have spoken to so many public servants in Wellington who are frustrated by the multiple different priorities they get handed down by the current government that change on a daily basis, the reports that are commissioned by consultancies only to sit unread on desks and unacted on, the conflicting, duplicating priorities, the changing work streams, the dumped projects, whether it's the TVNZ, RNZ merger one day, the income insurance scheme the other. Public servants want to do good work that has the maximum impact for the community that they serve. And so National's plan is a simple one. If we are elected, we will say to the chief executives of 24 public agencies that have collectively increased the costs of running themselves by 62%, please come to us with your recommendations of how you could find 6.5% cost savings, whether that's stopping working groups, reducing advertising, not filling job vacancies. They'll make their recommendations, we'll work with them, we'll make sensible decisions that will move resourcing to the front line and work alongside public servants to have more impact with your taxpayer dollars.
Oh, pushing the time limit there.
Protect and Prosper was set up to protect your job and your wealth and your assets. We don't have any particular plan to hunt down public servants and to move them on. But what I will say is, for an example, is take a hospital system. We're far more interested in where the money's gone. Like the last financial, June 22 year end, $5 billion went into the health system, and it disappeared into it like a sponge at the top, soaked up by some bureaucrats, accountants and others, and didn't actually get through to the patients or the medics or the emergency department or the triage section. We're far more interested in know where the money's gone and analyse to death the actual dollar, and because we're pretty sure that every dollar spent probably finds only 10 cents is left where it should be going. That is our focus, not the public servant.
Kia ora. So I also want to acknowledge Nicola as a Green Party volunteer. It's weird how many Greens are in the public service, possibly has something to do with being motivated by values, not profit. So, as regards the public service, is it perfect? No. Are there probably some efficiencies we could gain? Sure. Does everyone need to have fully accessible, quick, timely public services? Yes, but we need to bear in mind what happens every single time political parties talk about cutting the public service. It comes out of the contact centres, it comes out of the actual frontline people who are answering the phones and checking your emails and processing your forms. It also comes out of the so-called back office. That's all the admin people. What that means is the experience I had when my daughter was in hospital. She was discharged at 10 o'clock in the morning and we left the hospital at 5:30 that evening because they needed a doctor to type up the discharge letter because there were no back office staff to do it. That doctor's shift had ended at 5. He was still at work so we could go home. That's what cutting the public service means.
Yeah, I've been a public servant for about 20 years and I can see some of my beloved former colleagues in the audience tonight, and I think I've been restructured at every government department that I've been in. Restructures are very disruptive and you tend to lose the good people first because they can get good jobs somewhere else. There are places we could save money in the public service, and I would say the first one is we have all, as public servants, worked on projects or given advice to ministers that they have just ignored. They ask for the advice, and if they don't like it, they ignore it. And I would say that's probably the biggest source of waste in the public service. And Nicola, that has happened under both National and Labor governments. Absolutely. So yeah, we can save some money. But when you say to a chief executive, cut out 6%, actually sometimes the easiest things to cut out are programs. And sometimes those programs are the really unsexy ones, like keeping pest species out. And you can save 6% now on keeping out Cody dieback disease, fungus, or whatever it is. And then you've got to pay masses more to remediate the problem once it's here. I'm not saying there's nothing to be saved, but my gosh, we've got to be careful.
Every time you hear someone say they should do that, they is actually the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is not a bad word. What I love about what Ashley Bloomfield did do COVID, he actually showed just what a really professional, well-functioning public service we have. The bureaucrat, do you know bureaucrat? The 1,800 more police are those extra bureaucrats. The 23% more doctors, the 22% more nurses, they are these bureaucrats that people spit out like it's a bad word. These are the people, and I recognise a lot of you here, everybody wants everyone else's job to go, but they know perfectly well that if their job goes, then there'll be problems. I was part of a restructure in police where they took all the back roomers out, all the non-sworn. I see a couple of people here from that. All that happened was the sworn police had to do the jobs because the jobs didn't disappear. There's always efficiencies, but don't throw out the baby with the bath water.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. So we've got another question. Please, name and what's your question? No? Do we get another? Oh, just grab that mic there. That's all good. Martin.
My name is Tom Cranny, and I live in the lofty heights of Woodridge. I would like to know from Nicola how we're going to expand this 5,000 houses so as that when the 100,000 people arrive, and they're on the boats coming, that we're going to have something ready to go when they get here.
Okay, then Martin.
Tom, can I just say I've been door knocking in Woodridge recently, and you live in a beautiful part of Wellington. Look, the 100,000 that one of the speakers referred to earlier is the increased immigration level that has happened after the borders were reopened post-COVID. And that's not all coming into Wellington, by the way. In fact, most of it's going into Auckland. But we know that some of those people are sorely needed. Anyone who's been to Wellington Hospital lately or who has family who work as a nurse will tell you we have significant job vacancies still in our health system, and we do need skilled workers to help fill those roles. We also, by the way, need to train more of our own and keep them here. That's why we're proposing to help pay off the student loans of graduate nurses in return for them agreeing to stay in New Zealand. So, look, do we want New Zealand to grow? I do. I want this to be a wealthier country where our children have more choices and opportunities. We have to build for that growth. That's why I'm saying let's build a road that allows us to open up more land for the houses our children and grandchildren will need.
Thank you. Martin.
Thank you. I just have to say that you've all been sold a pup by the current government. The reality is you cannot build truly affordable houses in built-up areas. You have to go to the city fringe and get support from the government with infrastructure. There's no city in the world, civilised city, that doesn't do it that way. With build rates at 5,000 square metre gross building area and land rates at 1,200 a square metre, it's just not going to happen in the city. So you have to do it like that. That's how cities like Manukau fit out. Now the other myth that you've been told is that Wellington's a spread out city. It's not. It's only 10 minutes across. So in actual fact, you've got plenty of land nearby. We need to get on with building affordable houses. 600,000, not 950, 2/3 of the RV as I had in Auckland. So it put people in having to borrow 700,000. And we've got this band that when the interest rates go up shortly, they're all going to be in negative equity. There's thousands of kids that are going to be ruined thanks to this current policy and the failed Kiwi Build. You don't see any large-scale developments in Wellington City, do you? We need a lot of housing, not just a few.
Thank you.
So housing's obviously the big issue of the election, and the Greens plan includes massively upscaling the amount of public and community housing available, also supporting first home buyers, supporting those who need their mortgages refinanced because interest rates are on the rise again, and looking at innovative solutions like enabling the building of papakainga on Māori land. The thing is, housing is a public good and it's a human right, and it shouldn't be a commodity, and if we're not going to approach our policy with that view in mind, we are simply never going to solve this housing crisis.
I don't know if you meant to, Tom, but you turned this into a tax question for me. So, we've got this problem, and this problem has resulted in too much demand for housing and not enough supply for housing because, as I said, it's driven us to have the third largest houses in the OECD. So, what we need to do is make those bars look more even. And by the way, a wealth tax doesn't do that because it increases the size of all these other bars. And you can take wealth away with you. What you can't take with you is land. So that's why we want to do what the tax experts have been saying for decades, is to implement a land tax and use that money to have a $15,000 tax-free threshold. So it's a tax switch, so you're not necessarily paying any more. But what it does is balances these bars so we don't have this artificial incentive to buy as many houses as big as we can possibly afford. That's how we can house more people. By the way, happy for more people to come to New Zealand. We just have to have the incentives right so we can build homes for them.
You, so I could counter my friend on the left, because we have built 1 in 7 of all public houses have been built by this government, and there are 13,000 additional public houses, so we are actually doing it. But let me just tell you one other thing, and this combines with all the tax, the bright line test, that investors in houses and landlords are not bad people. They're smart people. They're actually doing exactly what the system incentivises them to do. So what we're going to do is incentivise them, and are doing. They can invest, they can get interest deductibility, just build a new house, a new build. And that is the incentive, because it's interesting, National have got this back on track. Well, they're going back because their policy is we're going to all the things that made housing more expensive and incentivised everybody to invest in them. We're going back to that very thing under their policies, because we're going back to 2 years, bright line, and interest deductibility.
Sorry, Paul. I thought.
Cool, thank you. Look, you know, we know there's no quick panacea to the building of homes, but one of the key issues is that city councils cannot afford the infrastructure that is required for homes, piping, all of those kinds of things. ACT believes that 50% of all GST on new builds should be given back to councils so that they can invest in infrastructure that is necessary to support those new homes. And we believe that will open things up.
Yeah, so we obviously need to increase our housing supply, and we have to reduce the demand and increase the housing supply. And then what we would like to do is prioritise the development of affordable homes, family-friendly homes. I mean, you can and have collaboration with local councils, because every area is different. We can't put a blanket rule for every area, because every area is different, and so we need to collaborate with our councillors, our builders, our architects, just to all make this family friendly. We can't just have all, we can build lots easy, high rise and everything and be all intensified and condensed living, but that doesn't always suit families, and it doesn't always suit every area. So we have to be careful how we do that. We do want to make people be able to afford homes, so we have that a first home buyers interest-free package. I mean, that's something that we want to look at. So make it affordable, and we have to make sure that it's planned well.
Thank you. Gosh, you guys are hardcore. These questions. We're going to do another 3 questions. So let's get into it. So what have we got there, Jane? Oh, these are the lucky ones. 1, 2, 3.
First one is A5. Well, yeah, A Heart 5. That's the first one.
So who's got A Heart 5?
A Heart 5.
Yeah. So and then we'll just read out the other 2.
A41.
And
92F, which I believe is from YouTube.
oh, so we'll do the third one from YouTube. Okay. So we're going to be starting with Stephanie. Please ask your question.
Hello, my name is Liz. My question is, a lot of you are representing parties who love the catchphrase, get ahead. Who are we leaving behind to be getting ahead of them? Jess, if you want to talk more about tax, I'm happy to hear about that in this section.
No, Liz, what have you done? Don't let her talk about tax more. So I absolutely agree. When we're talking about getting ahead, we need to ensure that nobody is left behind, and that's why the Green Party has policies like free dental and the income guarantee to ensure that everyone has at least a baseline of a good life, and that is easily funded out of our wealth tax, again, 2.5% on debt-free assets over $2 million. And we also are going to rebalance other parts of the tax system. So if you have heard Nicola say lovely things about how much money she's going to put into your pocket, but you'd like to check out how much money we're going to put into your pocket, not that money in your pocket should motivate you, because, value's not profit. We have a tax calculator on our website. National have a tax calculator on theirs. Do some comparisons. It's quite interesting what the ostensibly radical left-wing party is doing. We cannot leave people behind. We all have to go forward together, because the greater inequality you have in a society, the greater the problems you have. So only by all of us living good, healthy, happy lives are we all going to benefit.
Liz, I can see the knitting's progressing well. Good question. Look, our party believes in reward for effort, reward for achievement, and we know that too many people are struggling right now. The cost of living has been extremely high. It's now going into its 3rd year, the cost of living crisis. Inflation remains out of control, and it is hurting working people. It is hurting people on superannuation. It is hurting people across our community. And I've spoken to these people in our community on their doorsteps, people who haven't gone to visit their grandchildren for 2 years because they can't afford it anymore. So we have to get inflation under control, and that's what National's economic plan is about. We also have to reduce those costs of living that are avoidable. That's why we will not be increasing petrol tax next term, unlike Labor, which are proposing to add up to $8 to your tank of petrol every time you fill up. That's why we need to let working people also have tax reduction.
I have a tiny billboard. This is the teal card, because the main people we leave behind is young people and future generations. When we have a housing system that delivers house price growth like this, New Zealand is the top line, and you can see that National and Labor have both been responsible for this. we leave behind young people. So the teal card is like a gold card, but it's for people under 30. And this includes fully funded healthcare. It includes a sort of civic service kind of education program. It includes free public transport. Basically, it's an investment in the future generations who have been left behind by increasing housing costs and facing the biggest challenges ahead of us in terms of climate change and others. Please feel free to grab one of these teal cards and we can make it a reality by voting for top. Kia ora.
Okay. Thank you. Still haven't got everything off cables.
One of the most formative things in my life was working as an undercover police officer. I was living among gangs and others, and one of the things that really struck me was I met people way brighter than me, way more able than me, but for their circumstances would have been probably more successful than me. And it's my motivation in politics is to make sure that those people get the opportunity to participate in mainstream life. Because I've got an intellectually disabled son. He will never have that full opportunity, but we can actually build a life where he can have a relatively normal life in what we can build. We can do that as a society. That's why little things like free dental care for under 30s, because nothing holds people back when they get to 40s and 50s and their teeth are falling out. You know, it really does put you apart from the crowd. So it's free prescription charges, so you actually go and get your drugs. So there's no point just talking about the things. You've actually got to do things. And that's why you really do need to party vote Labour, to make sure those things continue, because otherwise we're going to put a lot of those things at risk.
Well, to be honest, we believe that really everyone deserves the right to move forward and to be able to have a good opportunity to work hard and succeed. But as a compassionate society, we also believe in the social safety net. However, that safety net is not a hammock. And so we believe it is important to lift people up so that they may be given those new opportunities to move forward. And I do have to stand back and say to some of the comments from the Green Party, where earning a profit is not some social evil. I earn 50 cents of profit per cup of coffee I make. That is not much. And that goes to paying my rent at home, paying my food, and paying my electricity. These are not bad things. It's productive work, and I feel proud to be able to do it, even though it's a humble activity. And I think that is something that every Kiwi deserves the right to experience.
Yeah, no, we shouldn't be leaving anyone behind. I mean, we need to move forward together, but you know, we also need to look at those who really, really need the help. I mean, that's why we've got our first 25,000 tax-free. We also have a zero tax on benefits, superannuation and student loans. And we want to review all the government spending. You know, this is cost of living that we need to really look at. So we're not leaving anyone behind. We want to move everyone forward. We also, for over 65, free basic dental care and dentures. So we're trying to look after our young and to our old. Thank you.
Thank you. And Martin, I know you're waiting there patiently.
Well, our party, Protect and Prosper, was formed on the basis to protect you and then, when you're ready, to prosper. So in actual fact, we believe in some sort of pause, believe it or not. And what we mean by that is that there are these crises that we have with health and cost of living, etc., housing. We need to sort these out properly before moving forward. It's a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, shelter, clothing on the ground, and then you can only progress to the higher levels when you've sorted out those really critical, important items. If you haven't got your health, you can't move anywhere. So once that's done, then we're suggesting that we move to the enterprise and the productivity, etc. So I think we need to pause to some extent and think about that, because these crises have been allowed, they've been put up, the carpet's been put over them. There's so many of them now that it really is a mess.
Yes, thank you everyone. So next question, please name and what's your question, please?
Kia ora. Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Ash, and
So could you just hold the mic a bit closer to so people can hear?
sorry, is this okay? Can everybody hear? Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Ash. I have a bit of a long question, and it gets a little bit dark, but I feel I have an obligation to my whānau to ask it of you. In the past few years, there has been a horrifying and enormous surge in anti-transgender attacks and legislation. A 16-year-old transgender girl in the United Kingdom was murdered in broad daylight. Legislators in the United States have passed 568 anti-trans bills, have proposed 568 anti-trans bills, and 83 of them have been passed in this year alone. The Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention, named of the man who coined that term, has declared this swath of bills genocidal as they seek to eradicate transgender people as a group from existence. Political leaders in our country... Do we have a problem here?
Ash, could you just... could you just ask the question,
now that
please?
I've covered my bases, my question is, will you commit to protecting transgender people, especially in the area of healthcare?
Look, I think about these issues the way most New Zealanders do, which is you do you, I do me, let's include each other. And I think that is the way that we should operate, and we shouldn't import these cultural wars that exist in other countries to this country, where actually we value each other. And that means that people should be treated the same regardless of their ethnicity, their gender, their sexuality. Those are beliefs that are important to me. I'm what is sometimes called a liberal, which to me means that we take each individual on their merits and we protect individual rights. They are very important to me.
Ash, the answer is yes. We should be, providing healthcare to transgender people as we should with everybody, and we know that gender affirming care is life-saving. So this is not something frivolous. This is really, really important. We know that transgender and non-binary people, and anyone who is not gender conforming, is at higher risk of violence and at higher risk of sort of mental health problems, and that is largely a product of how the society treats people who don't conform with our sort of gender expectations. So the least we can do is provide decent healthcare. We also know that the vast majority of New Zealanders are like Nicola, are like, it's fine, people are just people, right? And actually, in New Zealand, the number of people who believe that transgender people should be treated with dignity is actually growing, which is amazing news.
Yeah, I'm of a generation that this hasn't been a major issue for much of my life. Since I've been part of the Labour caucus, I've been educated about these issues. The answer to your question is yes. Full entitlement for the same entitlements as everyone else has. And where there are specific needs around the trans situation, then let's make sure they're addressed.
Thank you. So ACT does not have a specific policy on this. However, as a libertarian-style party, we believe that every New Zealander has an equal right to access to our services, no matter what our background is. And so our answer, quite uncomplicatedly, is yes, naturally.
Well, as I said in my, in my opening introduction, that I'm in health, and so we don't want any health, discrimination, whether by race or by whoever you are. So it's a needs base. So if you need the care, you will get the care, and we should, respect people's differences, and we do. And so if you need help, you get help, and we believe that everyone should have that equal access to healthcare, definitely.
Okay, thanks, Ash. Sorry. I'm losing track, sorry. It's getting on a bit. I think we're all getting a bit tired, but...
The Protect and Prosper Party has a specific policy, and that is We Are One. The co-founder of Protect and Prosper is from India, an immigrant, and a lot of our members are from overseas. So as far as gender, ethnicity, age or postcode, we are one. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your question, Ash, and everyone's said some nice things up here, but I just want to say that none of it is good enough. It is not good enough to simply say, oh, we accept trans people, we accept non-binary people. It is the role of government to ensure everyone has enough to live a good life, and that is so true, especially for our rainbow communities who face so many systemic barriers simply to living any life at all. So the Green Party has very clear policies around healthcare, around access to legal recognition documents. We want to have a Ministry of Rainbow Communities to make sure these issues are not forgotten or just sidelines in other chief executives' annual reports. And I really want to emphasise our record on supporting our rainbow communities. It was the Green Party's petition, spearheaded by Dr. Elizabeth Kerekere, to ban conversion practices, which got 160,000 signatures. So fast, our social media team ran out of graphics to put on Twitter about it and pushed Labour to actually take action faster than they were going to, because every single person deserves to be respected for who they are, but it is also our job to take down those barriers and to end that discrimination.
Yes, thank you very much, Ash, for your question. I'm just going to just pause for a second, because it's 9 o'clock. We've been here a long time now. Do you want to continue with a few more questions? Anyone who's actually getting a bit tired, you can go now. Do you want? So, no, we're going to go some more. So we'll do a couple. We'll do a couple more questions. We've got one more already from YouTube, which I remember. So, please, do you want to, Darren? Can you read it out for us, or Jane? Can you read it out for us, please?
This is a question from Matt from Johnsonville. As a candidate for Ohariu, what are you going to do about Stride property land banking large amounts of central Johnsonville instead of actually developing those areas for your electorate?
See the graph again. What was his name? Matt? Matt, thank you. Okay. So the problem we have with Johnsonville Mall is the same problem we have with the rest of the country, which is that our tax system is messed up. So Stride has been offered loads and loads of carrots from the City Council. Everyone's been bending over backwards. Greg's been writing them a lot of very firmly worded emails, and yet they have not changed their commercial decision not to invest in the mall. What we need to do is make commercial sense for them to either develop the mall or to sell it to someone who will. And the way we do that is we fix our tax system with a land tax so that it doesn't make sense to land bank anymore. You want to put land to productive use. What we have at the moment is the ghost town across the road, albeit with some very nice little shops in the ghost town. And the land value increases every time the council and government puts amenities around it, and they love it. No reason to do anything else. Kia ora.
No, Jessica, no strongly worded emails. I've met with the board, met with the chair, and I actually believed, and many of you will know how much money Stride spent there in the last couple of years. Some of you probably got it. I thought the bulldozers would be there at the end of last year, early this year. So did they. They got turned down by their Australian funders. So that just now gives us another place to actually start directing our attack. Because it's not about me. It's actually now one of the things that I noticed when I arrived here was there was no Johnsonville Business Association. So there was actually no counter voice here. There now is, which I established. They've become a bid which means they get recognition from the council, and there's now a very strong voice. I just think there's some members of it here who are now another strong voice, and that's how it's going to happen. It's not going to be about wandering off to go and organise meetings with the council. The councils are involved. Whether the option is around some sort of compulsory purchase, very difficult because it's a fully operating business as well. But it's going to be about understanding where a central government MP can influence it, and that's the next step.
I must apologise. ACT does not have a specific policy on the Johnsonville Mall. However, that said, you know, we do believe that by fixing the environment in which businesses operate, including bringing the cost of living down, high inflation, it does make it more attractive for the business to get their ass into gear and start doing it. And Jessica, I do agree with you. They do need a bit of a stick, don't they? I just don't really know what the answer to that is for me. Sorry.
I can show you my graph.
No, yeah, no,
Public registered company too, by the way.
Yeah, just as ACT, we don't have a specific stance on the Johnsonville Mall, but obviously what we need to make, what we need to do is boost our economy again and get that going, get the inflation back down, make it so that it's attractive for businesses to come back to Johnsonville, because that is the problem, is it's not attractive for or not economical for them. So that is something that we need to look at. Cost of living, let's drive that down, and let's just get that inflation back down, make it more attractive for businesses, and actually, yeah, look after our small businesses, look after our local businesses, and get them back in an attraction to Johnsonville.
I've worked for 7 property development companies, and I was appointed development consultant on World Square Sydney, 250,000 square metres, did the financial modelling and planning. And it's not about bulldozers, it's not about any of that. It's actually about the development financial model. One is the actual land, construction, consultant, finance, associated development, total development cost, and the potential revenue, which includes the development margin. The development margin's there, they'll go ahead with it. What has to happen is we have to get the councils, government, together, working with them, talking about the financial model. And once you get that, the incentives they'll have to, unfortunately in Wellington, these large projects require quite big incentives for it to happen. If you really want it to happen, it will happen. But that's what's actually it's got to happen at that ground floor. Like I was involved in the old Bank Arcade project, and we basically owed $3 million in the facade and earthquake strengthening $1 million, and it cost council $500,000 a year, 100 schemes, 3 public tenders, nothing had happened. In the end, I got Ebo Garden, but $27 million in. We have to do the deal and work with them to do it with the council and the government. That's first.
So, I'm just, first of all, going to say, yeah, everything Jessica said. That saves me a minute. Johnsonville Mall should be a thriving, bustling, productive centre of the community. It's not. I don't know why, except for the property and tax issue. I can remember hearing promises about how it was just around the corner as long as I have lived in the northern suburbs. So I'm not going to make promises, because that feels like a very silly promise to make when it is definitely not just in the hands of your local MP. But what I will say is that, remember, the way MMP works, if you party vote Green and get me in, you could have 2 or 3 Oharu MPs, and maybe all of us writing stern emails might get some progress happening.
Yeah. Look, it is sad watching all of those small businesses in the mall shuttered up. But let's also defend the small businesses that are still there. There are some great ones there, and let's keep supporting them. But my vision for Johnsonville Mall is that there we have a huge area in terms of a bus depot, a train station, in the middle of an incredibly well-connected area. That should be a mixed housing, retail, and commercial development in the middle of a transport hub. Surely we can all agree on that. So we need to get the council to the table with the developer, and I think central government needs to be at that table too, to work out the financial model that gets that off the ground. So how am I going to affect that if I'm your MP? Well, we want to do a city deal with regions around the country, including Wellington, where they identify their infrastructure priorities and we work out our contribution as a government to getting them off the ground. And I want to see Johnsonville Mall and the redevelopment of my vision on that list.
Thank you, Nicola. I don't suppose I can have a minute as a city councillor. No? No. We'll do a couple more questions, I think. So Jane, please.
A25.
You want to come up here to ask your question? A25 with the red hearts on it. And this, yeah, please just. Mike's got the mic there. And what's another one, please?
Another number is A39. A39. If you can get yourself ready.
Okay, so A39. So please, ask your question.
My question is, I have heard the word working people used as if everyone here was working, but not everyone works. Are they covered by these policies that talk about working people? Only allowed one question?
Yeah, we've got another one to come after you, someone else.
Right, and the other question was...
No, one question.
No?
One question. Many people.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It shows that it's very difficult to have one policy that covers everyone. You're talking about retirees? Just assume, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yes, everyone.
Yeah, well, everyone. Well, what you've got to do is make sure your policies actually do impact on everyone. I think that question we had before, where no one does get left behind. It's like the salaries at the moment. You know, we're making sure the doctors' salaries, the nurses' salaries, the teachers' salaries, but then you've actually got to move on to make sure those others are, okay, admittedly, these are working people. You've got the winter energy payment. There has been increase in your pension, as you will be aware. So focus on the numbers or the people that you are looking at. So absolutely, yes, make sure no one left behind.
Wow, I'm going to agree with the Labor candidate. No one should be left behind. And realistically, we do need to ensure that we have strong health systems so that all Kiwis can benefit from those, even as they're growing older. I look at my own parents in Whangarei and the challenges they have in getting into hospital and the time waits. It's just not good enough. So, our answer is yes, all policies should cater to the needs of New Zealanders where they are at in their stage of life.
Yeah, so no one should be left behind. We should always be thinking from our child that's born to the very old. With vision, family focus, we have grants for, when you have a child, there's a $5,000 grant. It's called a wealth and health investment for the child, so that they can invest in the family can invest in that child. And so we got to think of a whole spectrum for all ages. So no one is to be left behind. So in our policy planning, everyone is included for all Kiwis. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Martin, who are you going to leave behind?
We have two very strong policies that will help people of that sort of age. One is in health, and that's emergency health care. As far as the triage times, when you enter Wellington Hospital, you're actually only 25% in trauma get through in the required time for imminently life-threatening. Immediate life-threatening is 75%. They should both be 100%. It's an absolute disgrace. In addition, the wait time is a sort of 10 hours. Mid-Central was 2 days. But we are suggesting that we bring the target time down to 4 hours as they have in the UK. The second one is about cost of living. The biggest cost, typically for renters and for homeowners, are obviously mortgages, but rates. And what we're going to do is we're going to deal to this reckless spending that's going on by a group of councillors and councils at the council. And we're going to do it by basically changing Local Government Act 2002, amending it, and saying that it has to be a referendum on all major projects and also the feel-good and vanity projects, and the infrastructure and the core services can be fixed to CPI. But we need to do it because it's totally out of control and we're very exposed.
Kia ora. So great question. I'm a comms nerd myself, so I love it when parties start talking about working families or middle New Zealand or the squeezed middle, because they're trying to paint a picture where you're one of the people that gets the benefits, but those other yucky people, they don't. Don't worry about it. So the Green Party is different. We actually do mean everyone when we say everyone. We understand that work is not just about paid work. There's also volunteering. There's also child raising. All of these things are actually valuable jobs, regardless of whether they are paid wages and salary or not. So our income guarantee is a guaranteed income of $385 a week for everyone, regardless of whether you are studying, regardless of whether you are ill, regardless of whether you are retired, regardless of whether you are a stay-at-home parent. We also have universal child tax credits, not ones that are based on the idea that we need to incentivize people by starving their children if they're on a benefit, which is, to be blunt, what the current Working for Families policy has done and what successive Labour and national governments have done. Everyone means everyone, including free dental, Greg. You can actually do it for everyone, not just the under 30s.
I think that's a fair question, and just to surprise you all, I want to agree with Stephanie on with something, which is that I can tell you the hardest job I've done in my life was when I was at home with our fourth baby, Gloria, and her 3 older siblings. And that wasn't, I guess, what you'd call paid work, but boy, oh boy, it was challenging work, and I salute all of those caregivers in our community. Our policies are about ensuring that people across the board get a good opportunity in New Zealand. So we want to deliver for superannuitants. Under our policies, we will be keeping the winter energy payment. Superannuation will be tagged to the after-tax average wage. So when we reduce taxes for people who are still in the workforce, that increases your superannuation payments by $27 a fortnight for a couple as well. We want to keep the social safety net in place so that there is income support for those who can't work. We also want to ensure that we support them into paid work where they can work, they should. And we will be particularly focusing on young unemployed there.
I'm so pleased Stephanie did this spiel about paid and unpaid work because it saved me some time. It means I can talk about universal basic income. Universal basic income means that whether you're in paid or unpaid work, everybody gets a bit of money every week. And when you start working, unlike a guaranteed minimum income or a traditional benefit, you don't start losing it. And the great thing about that is at the moment we have what are called abatement rates. So you get your benefit, and then when you start working, you lose your benefit. So there are people who can work 10, 20, 25 hours a week for no extra gain. With a universal basic income, you get rewarded for each extra hour you work, which is great for workers and it's great for employers, because anyone here who's an employer knows how hard it is sometimes when you've got someone who's on a student allowance or on some sort of income support when they say, I can't actually work more because MSD is going to mess with my income support if I do. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been such an attentive audience, and so I'm just going to ask you, do you want one more question? Yes? Yeah, you up for one more? We'll do one more question. Sorry? A25 is the lucky last. A25 has got a lucky last chance to ask another. Oh, that was, we've already done that one. Yes, so we just pull another one out, I think. Jane.
A24.
Oh, your neighbour, baby. Who's got A24? Oh, thank you, sir. You're not. Your question been answered. We'll do another one then. Thank you. That's even better. Thank you for being generous.
A34.
A34, the last doozy. Who's got A34? Might have left. We'll keep going. Maybe it's not to be.
A4.
Oh, thank you.
I just about jumped out of my seat then. Hi, Marianne from Newlands. I work in residential aged care and I'm on the E2 governance board. My question is, there is no current mandatory safe staffing levels in residential aged care. Will your party support, implement and fund mandatory safe staffing levels in residential aged care facilities so care staff can have adequate time to give effective quality care when those in care need it?
So ACT does not have a specific policy, but yes, we do support that all forms of care that is, should have safe standards and that they should be consistent across the country. And through a good, solid health system, it should be able to fund that. So yes, we do support that.
Hi, thanks for your question. We don't have a specific stance on that, but I mean, working in health, I do understand where you're coming from, and yes, I would push for that as well. That yes, we need to have safe care for all of our patients. So I definitely agree that we need to support that.
Thank you. Martin.
This area has been neglected for an awful long time now, and certainly believe that it should be the case where the staff are fully supported and get the same rates and conditions as others in similar roles. We also believe that there should be analysis on the amount of aged care available. With an ageing population, the way it is, we're going to be very short. I think there's a whole suite of things in there, and also the sort of conditions when people sign up to, say, a retirement home, and then the family finds later on they have to wait, a year to get the funds from the sale of the retirement home and all that. There's a whole suite of things. I know there's some work's been done, but that needs to be fully and thoroughly investigated.
Kia ora. Thank you, Marianne. This is the second time I've been asked this question by a former E2 colleague today, so it must be my day. The Green Party absolutely supports increasing wages for our aged care workers and addressing staffing shortages. Does our policy say safe staffing levels? No, it doesn't. Most of us are going to say we don't have a specific policy on safe staffing levels. You don't need one. It's common sense. It is basic health and safety both for the workers in our aged care facilities and for the residents of our aged care facilities who should be the focus, which is another reason why we support a review of the Retirement Villages Act. We also support moving towards more public provision of aged care because, sure, Paul, there's nothing inherently unethical about making a profit, but when you are making a profit at the expense of our elders' health and safety, it's deeply unethical.
Can I acknowledge you and the work you do and the contribution you make? We don't have a policy to do that. We acknowledge the significant staffing shortages that have existed across aged care for some time, leading to some aged care facilities having to close right at a time when our population is ageing and we need more of those facilities. So we are committed to working with the aged care sector to ensure it's on a sustainable footing, because we're all getting older and we need people like you who are going to be able to look after all of us as we age, and that is a very important workforce and a very important sector. I've got 10 seconds. I just want to say a big thank you to the JCA and to Tony. You've done an incredible job, and what a great crowd you've all been. I think this has been a really respectful debate. Thank you.
My mum was a nurse and she worked in aged care for most of her career, and unfortunately her career, which she absolutely loved and was amazing at, was cut short when she was working at night with not enough staff, and she injured her back and then spent decades from when I was a child on ACC and unable to nurse anymore, which was a real tragedy for her. My dad now lives in hospital level care and they do not have enough staff, and I have had more phone calls than I would like to say from him saying, I need to go to the toilet. I've been ringing the bell for an hour and no one is coming. and no one wants to get a phone call like that because he is completely helpless. And as hard as those staff at his care centre are working, they can't be everywhere, and they can't do everything, and they can't do everything safely. So absolutely we support safe staffing levels.
It's my understanding that homes with hospital care are obliged to have a registered nurse on duty at all times. Of course, can I just say the problem with though is that what you'll be doing is introducing another layer of bureaucracy, because if you actually make it compulsory, then someone's got to be there to make sure it happens as well. And what happens if it doesn't? So our policy is not at the moment to make it, because actually you could end up inadvertently making it worse. But what we have to do is ensure that there are sufficient nurses coming into the country, being trained to ensure, and also of course a lot of the private providers are incentivised and make sure that they do actually provide that minimum level of care. And once again, looks like that's the last question. Thank you very much. The biggest crowd I've been at an election meeting, probably one of the biggest ones that will be in Wellington tonight. So well done, team, and just party vote Labor and vote me for your local MP.
Very well done, Greg. Look, we're going to close the formal part of the meeting. There are those of you who tried to ask questions who never got the chance. I do encourage you to still email the candidates, that they will answer their email questions, and so you should get an answer from them. So I also want to ask you to thank the members of the JCA, and I'm particularly going to call some names out at the end, which is Darren, Jane and Anne, who have been crucial in organising all of this and making this pretty straightforward, looking like it's pretty straightforward, but there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. So I ask you to please put your hands together and thank them. I also want to ask you to thank the candidates for coming up here and putting themselves on the line to represent you. I hope you've learned something from all of them. I hope this is going to help you make a decision. But I do know that this is a really intense time. I think there's about 8-10 events probably that they're going to this week. It's all full on. So please, I ask you to thank them, please. And lastly, I want to say thank you to you, because this election seems to have some interest in people. They can see there's a decision to be made, and I really thank you for coming out and trying to find out what the right way is and what is on offer from our different parties. This is what democracy is all about. I'm a big believer, and I know everyone in the JCA is a big believer in this. This is why we put it on. So please give yourself a clap, please. And so that's it. If someone wants to stay around and help put away a few chairs, would all help. I think the candidates may hang around for a little bit if you want to catch up on someone in particular, and grab the brochures and everything. And otherwise, have a very good night, drive safe, and thank you for coming out.